Mysterious cosmic beings exist. We know about the Nine, but there are others. The Ancients, Theia, and gods emerging from the void. Today, we discuss the lore of these entities and if they are all connected. The Nine are pretty daunting in their fourth dimensional realm. But why did they form in the first place? And most importantly, what else is there with them? Welcome, Guardians, let's dive right in. The Awoken once communed with something they called the Ancients, a group of entities who contacted them in the Dreaming City when they were building the location and the Oracle engine in particular. They even took over Mara's Techians to speak to her. And the Awoken have specific crystals they wear around their neck, I think amethyst, which allows them to connect to the Ancients more efficiently. These Ancients have many similarities to the Nine when we look back at it. Here's the card. There came a morning when the Techians spoke in unison, though none were near each other, and they said, "Who are you who builds a hidden city here in our thoughts?" And Mara, alone in the Queen's Walk of the Dreaming City, heard their voices ring out as if each witch stood beside her. And she said to the empty air, "I am Mara Sov. Who are you?" The answer came at once. "Wrong. It is the Ekpriosic. We are the nothing space fabric." Hearing this, Mara recognized a riddle. She turned at once and left the Queen's Walk so that Riven would not be inspired. As she walked, she thought. At length, she said, "Wrong. You are the Ancients. You are the idea that gives fate its shape." That one voice came again, as clear and strong as the birth of the universe, booming with a dispassionate curiosity. It thinks itself wise. How did something like it attain such revelation? Mara lengthened her stride, taking the steps 3 at a time so that she could duck into a little-used transport gate. She emerged in a small coastal observatory, then nothing more than a grand dormitory, and found Kelda Waj, the all-teacher, hovering 4 feet off the ground. Blood poured from her ears and nostrils. Her eyes saw nothing. The other Techians were transfixed thusly in a geometric array around the Dreaming City, each one inert, suspended, and bleeding. Mastering her horror, Mara said, "I have lived alongside you," and because she was afraid for Kelda, she asked, "Do you intend violence?" At once, the Techians collapsed to the ground like marionettes from severed strings, all but Kelda Waj, whose augment blazed with coruscating light. She rose higher into the air and began to unravel, particle by particle. As she came undone, she said, "Now it insults us." Mara steeled herself against the horrific sight of her old friend's ruin. She had been a fool to think the riddling was over. She said, "Of course. Violence, after all, is a matter of perspective. What I mean is, what would you ask me?" Beloved wise Kelda Waj burst apart and then collapsed all at once into a singularity that burned and burned and burned but destroyed nothing around it. From her unthroat came the voice again, which Mara felt in the atomic marrow of her bones, and it said, "What would it ask us?" For 15 days and 15 nights, the singularity burned unshielded. On the 16th day, they began the construction of the Oracle engine, which took the singularity of the All-Teacher as its seed heart. So the Ancients are the fabric of nothingness itself. Mara says they are the idea that gives fate its shape. That sounds kind of like the Nine, right? Fate. It does sound similar.
Oh, they intervened. You'll just never know. Everything you listed happened because the Nine allowed it.
The thing is, this is the only known lore on the Ancients. They contacted Mara when the Dreaming City was being created, and we don't know anything else. Something might have alerted them or piqued their interest at this time, but the way they speak is different. It's in all capital letters with the double plus symbols at the beginning and end. Members of the Nine, Sun through Neptune, don't speak like that. The Nine have never been known to speak like that in their written terms. Now, this card was written around Forsaken when the full speech pattern of the Nine wasn't like it was now in the Edge of Fate. Bungie even changed things in the last couple of months. But even during Forsaken, Mara told us to avoid falling into schemes of the Nine. And we know that she did have contact with Orin at some point. We saw that too in the Queen's Court. So I guess this can go either way. Maybe this was an early version of the Nine. Bungie didn't have their written speech patterns planned out yet. Or maybe the Ancients were something completely new, tied deep into that Awoken mythology. In the Anamorphosis lorebook, we learned that there are other entities like the Nine out there. Other vast streams of consciousness. One was named Theia, and as it entered our solar system, slammed into Earth, merged with the Nine, and was destroyed. Once upon a time, there was a life. They were not so vast as we, yet they lived. An existence far less debatable than that of quavering atoms. Consider this, our cognitum, Theia. You have heard this name before. The memory dissipates on solar wind. Day by day, they caromed gaily through the cosmologic stream. Unbound by stellar gravity, caged by pitiable minds. Each thought the Herculean effort of a millennium. See now the vast span of its life. So Theia lived until misfortune led it here, caught by my gravities. Mutual attraction equals utter annihilation. These microscopic specks, ants crawling in eaten rotten eye sockets. Helpless, stupid, blind. But for Theia, a scream lasting 1,000 years. A struggle against 1,000 clinging tendrils. Until at last, a fated meeting with Dearest 3, which could be Earth. Agonies shearing, crashing, tearing. Part of myself, my thoughts, my life torn away, floating brain dead in my sky. Theia's foolish parasite components, unaware to the last. That great stone-hewn form, that eon-enduring mind, gone, in one red-meat pump of sticky, noxious fluid. Each life snuffed, a thought scattered, awareness chipped away. A mere moment in your limited perception. But for one of us, a dying cry, stretching, forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. The curse of our existence, past is present is future. Pain never fade into memory. Can you imagine? No need to imagine when it can feel. You stretch like taffy. Look, see, Nasya. You know the dough is ready when you can read a label through it. You watch the galaxy pinwheel through the window pane of your mind. You watch your doom approach for 400 years in the span of a moment. You claw at neon bars. Nascent awareness oscillating, oozing. It won't calm down. I told you this story was a bad idea. Now just what have you bunch done to it this time? So Theia drifted here and was destroyed, a sibling of the Nine, a family member basically. Theia may have been a planet like we speculated about in past videos. It says its fated meeting with 3 meaning Earth. So Theia may have crashed into Earth and was destroyed, or maybe became the moon and other parts in the solar system. But we also know that the reef has a collection of asteroids. Tons of rocky rubble and debris in the middle of our solar system, separating the inner and outer members of the Nine. The Epochs and Orbits lorebook tells us how the reef itself may have been a 10th member of the Nine too, but there was no life there. Consciousness drifts in ever uninhabited space, a belt of disparate stone marking the divide. There was a point in the distant farther when 9 could have become 10. Now, a stillborn heartbeat awaiting life unanswered. Drift in an eternal cairn that mourns what could have been in silence. So it makes you wonder how many of these conscious forms exist in the universe. Are the 9 the main ones, the oldest and most knowledgeable? Or is there something far greater than even them? We see how they mess with fate here, what if there's something that can do more? And my question is, how did they spawn, so to speak? How did they begin in the first place? What says they had to be in our universe? I made a video last week about the Lord of Every Nothing and how it is strongly implied to be Saturn. But in the previous lore for that mysterious new god, it speaks of how the Taken sort of willed it into being because they wanted a new leader. They were lost without one. When I read stories about Theia and the asteroid belt, how they could have housed other members of the 9 and possibly gods, it does make me wonder. Is the Lord of Every Nothing actually that member of the 9 connected to Saturn? Did something else drift into the solar system and begin to claim power as this small voice? And when it comes down to it, and Bungie's perspective, what is the point of creating these lore entries? Just to give more emotional fuel to the 9's story and meaning, which is likely, or does it hint at something else? Is there some other entity connected to all of this? But anyway, Guardians, that's all we got for today's video. Some backstory about members of the 9, what could have been, and possible connections to the Ancients. If you'd like to see some more Destiny news, lore, and mysteries just like this video, please be sure to subscribe to the channel. I thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next video.